I was a 23-year-old female living in my very first apartment. I was single, working part-time, and going to college, so I was more focused on getting my life together than dating. Valentine's Day was approaching, and of course, I didn't have a special someone in my life at the time. So, a coworker of mine thought it would be a good idea to hook me up with a single guy she knew named Tom. Tom and I talked on the phone for a few days before meeting in person. When we eventually met, Tom bought flowers and candy and told me immediately how attracted he was to me, even saying that I'm his girl now. This kind of struck me as an odd thing to say as it was our first time meeting, but I thought he was really handsome. He was 6 feet 1 inch, and I'm 5 feet 3 inches. He had a gorgeous smile and seemed really sweet, so I just brushed the oddness off. We hung out for a few weeks, and during that time, Tom started acting very strange and clingy. He was very quiet and liked to ask questions about me and told me a lot about his personal life. But besides a simple "hi," he basically ignored and never spoke to any of my family or friends who came to visit often. He also wanted to occupy all of my time, wanted to know what I was doing all the time, and would get angry if I was busy or had other plans. He wasn't physically abusive, but really possessive. He even told me he loved me a month or so after knowing me, but I laughed it off thinking he was joking. One night, he actually got on his knees and proposed to me. I told him we had only known each other for a few months and that we should wait until we were both ready. Besides, he didn't even have a ring. He said he was ready to get married as soon as possible, that we could go to the courthouse now, and that he'd buy me a ring later. No thank you. If it's meant to be, we'll get married when the time comes, I thought. The very next week, he gets back on his knees and proposes again, still no ring, and says that he was ready now. At this point, I started to freak out. Not only was he clingy, but he was moving way too fast for me. I mean, we had only known each other for a few months. I was still busy with work and school, so I told him maybe we should take a break from hanging out for a while. He got this really weird look on his face and got really quiet, but eventually started smiling and agreed with me that we should take a break. A few days of not hearing from him, I came home to find him sitting on my staircase. I asked what he was doing there, and he just said, "Waiting for you," and smiled. After an awkward moment of silence, I told him he needed to go home. He got up and left, but then he started to randomly stop by my place. If I was there, I pretended not to be. He would knock for 30 minutes, sometimes leave for a few minutes, and even come back. He started waiting on my staircase for me to get home so much that I had to hide in my neighbor's apartment and wait until he eventually left. He called my cell non-stop, and I just ignored him. After a couple of months of this, he just stopped all of a sudden. I was completely relieved, like he finally got the hint. About 3 months of not hearing from him, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. I answered, and it was Tom. He wanted to know how I was doing and wanted to see me. He also said he told his mother about me and that she wanted to meet me too. I got super creeped out and upset, and I told him no, to lose my number, and to stop calling me. I guess he heard the opposite because he started randomly knocking on my door again. He knocked on my door a couple of times, and each time I had a friend or family member tell him to leave and to not come back. And each time, he just smiled and said, "Okay." The third time he came over was the last straw for me. I had my best friend tell him I wasn't there. I was, but was hiding. He asked her if he could wait for me inside my apartment until I got back. She told him no, and then he tried to push his way in. My friend called my name, and I ran out to help her shut the door. Heart racing, I told him I was going to call the police if he didn't leave and to never come back ever again. He mumbled something through the door, then I could hear him walking down the stairs. I ended up not calling the police that night, but I regret that decision to this day. Jump forward about 5 or 6 months later. It was a bright, sunny Saturday afternoon. 2 of my younger sisters, 17 and 14, were visiting. I was still laying in my bed because I had a major migraine. Since I lived alone, I had gotten used to leaving my bedroom door open so I could hear everything. I could hear them watching and talking about Goblin, the Gong Yu movie. I could also hear kids laughing and playing outside, nothing weird whatsoever. I took more aspirin, then dozed off again, but was awakened shortly by a loud bang. At first, I thought maybe a kid bounced a ball or something off of my door, but then I heard a really loud bang again and my sister started yelling, "What the hell is that?" Just as I was about to get up to see what was going on, bang again. I heard screaming and then a man's voice yelling, "Get the hell up." I started to panic, so this part might sound kind of messed up, but since I had no clue what was going on or who the person was, I slowly closed my door and blocked it with a dresser, sat on the floor in front of the dresser, and called 911. In my state of mind, I thought it would be much better to get the police over ASAP instead of risking my life even further by running into an unknown situation. Anyway, I told the operator someone broke into my apartment and it sounded like he was threatening my sisters and that the police needed to come quick. The operator asked me a lot of questions about how many or what the intruders looked like, but of course, I couldn't say because I was still laying in bed when it started. While I'm speaking with the operator, I could hear the guy's voice asking, "Where's your sister?" She doesn't know what I had to do for her. I love her. I heard more screams, then I heard, "She's in the room." At that point, my heart started beating triple speed. I don't know why they told this person where I was, maybe just out of pure terror or maybe getting me back for not coming out of my room to check on the situation, but next thing you know, my bedroom door was being kicked really hard. So hard I actually thought I had started sliding across the floor. He stops kicking my door and says, "If you don't open the door right now, I'm killing everyone." I was so damn scared, literally crying, begging, and asking the 911 operator where the police were. The whole ordeal was only about 5 minutes, but in a situation like this, time slows way down and it seemed like it went on for hours. I guess the intruder must have heard me talking to 911 because all of a sudden, he stopped and took off running out of the apartment. I was still on the phone crying with the door shut, and one of my sisters knocked and said it was okay to come out now because he's gone. I opened my door and was like, "Who the hell was that?" They said, "Tom." I couldn't believe it. In broad daylight, Tom kicked in my door with a sawed-off shotgun and threatened to kill my sisters and myself. The police ended up catching him about a week or so later. During this time, I found out through the police report that there was a previous incident that occurred with Tom a couple of weeks before my incident. The police were called because someone was shooting a shotgun in the air. When the police arrived, they found Tom holding the gun. They asked why, and he said because someone broke into his apartment, stole his weed, and cut the tip of his tongue. Not kidding. The police just issued that guy a ticket, which is crazy in itself. Anyway, I actually helped catch him by giving them one of his family members' addresses that I found in the phone book. They caught him headed to their house. He confessed right there, but after he was arrested, he pleaded not guilty but ended up taking a plea deal and only ended up serving 5 years. I moved to a different state after that, and the even scarier part is I found out that when he got released, he moved into a halfway house literally right down the street from my old apartment where he kicked my door in. 11 years have passed, and I still don't feel completely safe. I feel at any moment I could run into him randomly or hear my door being kicked in again. I keep moving constantly. I change my number every year, and I carry pepper spray and tasers with me everywhere I go. And I never go to bed without checking if the doors and windows are locked tight. I still even put a chair under the doorknob before I go to sleep at night. Anna was yet another teenager who would have to spend Valentine's Day alone. She threw herself on the bed, sighing. She was exhausted after an afternoon of hard work. She booted her laptop on her legs and started to check out her social media. Everyone's statuses were filled with heart emojis, photos of hugs, and mushy phrases. Seeing that made her sick, and it's not like she gets sick easily. But suddenly she realized the stubbornness she was feeling in her stomach was due to something different, or rather, someone different. She started to profile the profile of a boy named Jeffrey Woods. She opened the chat tab and there they were, dozens of messages written by her with no response from Jeffrey. She felt very sad, and a tear started to go down her cheek. She wiped the tear using a corner of the blanket, but then she realized she had stained her cheek with blood. The blood came from the body of a girl that lay by her side, just as if she were a horror doll. Anna casually set aside the body with a kick. It fell on the floor, face down, revealing several stab wounds on her back. Filled with gloom, Anna looked at the splashes of blood on the wall, as well as an inscription written in blood that said, "Sleep with me, my love." That was another message for the same recipient. Anna looked back at the chat window and hesitated about writing yet another message. Outside of the house, Luis was crouching while he observed Anna lying on the bed. He had been following her lately and was having a great time observing her massacres. It really seemed the pupil was besting the master. It was awesome how, with just a couple of knife movements, she ended the parents in the living room, and the way she savagely stabbed that girl in the back. You could tell that Anna had the same spirit and bloodlust as Luis. Maybe he was starting to feel something for her. The vibration on his phone interrupted his thoughts. He had a new message from Anna. He observed her again lying on the bed typing at her laptop, and the smile on his whitest face turned more marked and evil. He stood up and went away from that place while answering the message on his phone. Evening came, and Luis arrived at the doorsteps of a small restaurant on the outskirts. He covered his head with his hood. He looked at the entrance. It was filled with pompous decorations with hearts and cupids everywhere, with a sign that said, "Today's special, Valentine's Day dinner." That made him feel sick as he strongly held a knife he had hidden under his hoodie. His lust for killing increased, and he put his eye on a woman in the side alley. It was most likely one of the employees taking out the trash. He was about to rush towards her, but managed to contain himself. There would be enough time for that later, but for now, he was waiting for someone else. In the alley, Dora threw some trash bags into the trash container, tired from the several work hours she still had before her. That was the date she hated the most in the entire year: the hypocrisy, the unnecessary spending, the ridiculousness of it all for people to go back to arguing and yelling at each other the next day, showing their true selves. Moreover, her boss required her to wear that embarrassing pink uniform, smile at all times, and congratulate the customers. When she came back into the restaurant, for a moment, she reveled in the idea of grabbing one of the knives in the kitchen and venting all of her frustration by becoming the author of the biggest Valentine's Day massacre in history. But those were just dark humor, she told herself. She would never do something like that. When she was heading back to the kitchen, she saw a couple of young people coming to the restaurant, a couple of creepy and weird teenagers. As soon as Luis and Anna went in, a waiter stopped them and asked if they had a reservation. Luis said, "Of course, here it is." With a swift movement, Luis sliced the throat of the waiter, stopping him from uttering another word. "Now we can sit wherever we want." "Thank you." "Here, have a tip," said Luis as he proceeded to stab the waiter in the gut, finally ending his suffering. Luis and Anna gave a quick glance at the half a dozen tables occupied with couples who were having a romantic dinner. Luis told Anna, "What do you think, my love? You go for the ones on the right, and I go for the ones on the left." Anna responded, "Oh, I'd rather go for the ones on the left because that's the side where the heart is." With knives in hand, Luis and Anna quickly pounced on their victims. The first couples died practically without realizing what was going on. The next ones were unable to react, paralyzed in fear due to such a macabre scene. The last couples had a small chance to escape, but Luis and Anna quickly cut them off, making it impossible for them to run away. Luis's and Anna's synchronization as a couple of killers was truly lethal. When they had finally killed all of the couples, a deathly silence filled the place. The two of them looked into each other's eyes, and Anna decided to get closer and kiss him. But Luis stopped her at the last moment. "Honey, wait, we're not done yet." Anna nodded, trying to hide her embarrassment. Then the two killers split up to finish the job. Luis went towards the kitchen, and Anna went to the toilets. When Anna got into the women's toilet, she saw how all of the stalls were empty except for one. She remained very still, attentively listening inside, until she heard someone gasping. She rushed towards the occupied stall, opening the door with a kick, and found a female cook curled inside and paralyzed. In a very slight way, Anna said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know it was occupied." In the kitchen, Luis looked around carefully but didn't see anybody. He turned away to leave the kitchen, but all of a sudden, Dora came out of her hiding place under a cabinet, armed with a kitchen knife. She rushed towards Luis and stabbed him in the shoulder. Luis fell on the floor and quickly searched for something to finish him off, but her hard stab was not enough. Witnessing what had happened, Anna furiously rushed into the kitchen and knocked down Dora, making Dora hit her head and fall unconscious. "Whoa, another sourpuss who hates Valentine's Day, huh? Is it because you don't have someone to spend it with?" Anna and Luis looked at each other with passion once again. "Maybe a change of luck might help her find someone," said Anna while pointing at a bottle of bleach in a cabinet. When Luis saw it, he looked at Anna with a hopeful smile. Minutes later, when the policemen arrived, they witnessed what can only be described as a macabre show. Everyone present in the restaurant had been savagely killed. Only a waitress had survived, who now had several burns on her face. On each table, the corpses of the couples remained seated with their hearts extracted from their chests and put close together on the table. On the wall, there was a message written in blood that said, "Now go to sleep, lovers." It was Valentine's Day, and my girlfriend and I were college students at a small school in Kentucky. Due to the way the college works, it's hard for a lot of students to afford to keep up with having their cars on campus. This means you typically have to walk everywhere unless you have a bike, and I was among the unlucky this semester. The evening had rolled around, and we were thinking of semi-romantic things that we could do together. We arrived upon ordering food off of Uber Eats, not the most glamorous, but I offered to pay. Most of the restaurants were closed, but Taco Bell was open, so naturally, we ordered from there. Unbeknownst to us, there were no active drivers at the time, probably due to the road conditions because it was freezing and snowy. So the app defaulted to the setting where you can just walk and pick it up. There wasn't an option to cancel, so I decided I would walk 1.5 to 2 miles to pick up the food. I know most people at this point wouldn't be keen on walking in the snowy, freezing conditions at that time of night, but I'm a broke college student who had just spent his last few spare dollars on food. With a hug and a kiss from my girlfriend, I started off on my journey to get the food. Walking through campus at night isn't a problem for me since I'm a 5 feet 9 inches male, but once you make it through campus and into the residential areas of the town, that's when things tend to get sketchier. I had made it through campus and was about a quarter of the way to my destination when, in the distance, I saw another man walking down the street. Initially, two things put me at unease, the first being that he was wearing one of those long trench coats typically associated with sketchy men, and the second being the conditions outside. I mean, logically, no one should be walking around in these conditions as they were literally cold enough to freeze the sweat in your hair. I pushed these thoughts back, assuming he was either in a similar situation as me or just really enjoyed the cold weather. I did switch sides of the street, though, as I'm a tad socially awkward and hate talking to random people I don't really know. We both continued our walks and passed one another, and it seemingly went off without a hitch. Neither of us acknowledged the other, and we just kept walking. Being the wary person I was, I looked over my shoulder often in these kinds of situations. He was walking the same direction he had been, which was good. I kept walking and still threw the occasional glance over my shoulder for safety. About 2 minutes after the mystery man and I had passed, I glanced over my shoulder and noticed the man was now walking in my direction and a bit faster than I was. This creeped me out, and I started to walk even faster. I couldn't outrun him because it was too icy. At this moment, I noticed the man picked up speed too, until we were side by side on opposite sides of the street. When he called up to me, he started yelling, and I saw something fall from the sleeve of his jacket, almost like he was concealing it. It fell to the ground with a loud clatter, like a piece of metal bar or a large metal knife. At this moment, I grasped the danger of the situation, and my fight-or-flight instincts kicked in. Ready to defend myself, I pulled out my pocket knife as I noticed him starting to make his way across the street. It was at this moment that I said something to the effect of, "Hey man, I don't want any trouble. I've got a knife on me." The man stopped in his tracks and said, "Oh, I thought you were someone else who just attacked me." I played it off cool with a small gesture and thought I was safe. I continued on my track to Taco Bell, and after this experience, I was all the more wary. As I was looking over my shoulder, I noticed the man from before on the same path that I was on. I just walked as fast as I could to Taco Bell while throwing glances over my shoulder. At some point, the man just mysteriously vanished. I made it back to campus without any more events, but I had my hand on my pocket knife at all times. To this day, I have no clue what this man's intentions were, but they didn't seem good. Thanks for watching the video. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to watch the latest videos.